So far we've discussed how to become more culturally competent and ways to interrupt the stereotypes and biases we all hold. I want to transition to a discussion of exclusionary behaviors. It's important to have common language, as I mentioned, around DEI. So many of you may not have heard the term exclusionary behaviors before. So let me explain how it fits into the conversation. To some, the term microaggression doesn't fully capture the actions, emotional and material effects, or how they really impact women and people of color's career progression and their lives in general. In fact, researchers have found that experiencing what we know as microaggressions can be just as harmful, if not more, than overt forms of racism. I want to read a quote from an article in the Harvard Business Journal that describes why this term may be inadequate. People say that microaggressions are small things, but our studies indicate that microaggressions have a macro impact as they affect the standard of living of marginalized groups. Daily microaggressions create a lower sense of psychological well-being. They deplete psychic energy or problem solving and work productivity. Why? Because microaggressions are cumulative. They sometimes occur to people of color from the time they awake until they go to bed, from the time they are born until they die. What this is essentially saying is the inclusion of micro in the term almost minimizes the action's harmful effects and prioritizes the comfort of those in the majority by centering their attention on their impacts. So with that being said, for this conversation, we're still going to use the term microaggressions just because it's a general term and a lot of folks know it. But we're going to use that to discuss these actions and their consequences. But be sure that exclusionary behaviors is going to be a term that more and more folks will be using in the future. So defining microaggressions is important as we seek to understand them. I want to make sure everyone understands the various components to the definition and their impact. Microaggressions are everyday verbal, nonverbal, and environmental slights, snubs, or insults that were either intentional or unintentional, which communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative messages to target persons based solely upon their marginalized group membership. These are small things that people of color and other folks face on a daily basis that, regardless of their intentionality, have a negative effect on their daily lives. There are several different types of microaggressions that I'm going to discuss. One of the most severe is microassaults. Those are intentional acts of hate that can be verbal but also environmental. When you think about microassaults, think about hurtful and very harmful words, photos, or music, or anything that aligns with possible racist beliefs. Examples of this include referring to someone as colored or oriental or having a swastika displayed. Micro insults are another form and one of the most common forms of microaggressions. They are small and subtle insensitivities. This is often conveyed through rudeness or insensitivity through the demeaning of a person's racial heritage or identity. For example, telling a Black person that they are so articulate or that they speak so well. Another example is when people with an accent are viewed as not being from America, asking them, where are you from? These items add up and can have an impact on those we serve, which is why we must be mindful of our words and conversations, as they can be intentional or unintentionally harmful. Micro-invalidations can sometimes be most harmful because they disregard the thoughts and feelings or history and reality of people of color. This can result in individuals internalizing themselves as the negative cause instead of the discrimination they are dealing with. An example of this is gaslighting. When someone is dealing with a racial issue and they are told to calm down, or that's only in your head, or absolutely the worst, stop playing the race card. As we discussed earlier, we don't know what that individual may have dealt with or what the sum of their experiences are. We don't know what happened below that iceberg. So these words can be extremely harmful and potentially triggering. It's important to understand that someone that has dealt with microaggressions has potentially dealt with them over a period of time in their life. The impact of microaggressions has an accumulative effect over time. It's similar to what they call a death by 1,000 cuts. We've all had a paper cut and thought it was the worst thing in the world, but imagine having that happen over and over and over again. Because we don't always see it or recognize it, it does not mean that it's not harmful. We all must learn to understand the role that we play in avoiding and helping to eliminate not only microaggressions, but the impact they have on those we are serving. One aspect of microaggressions that I want to specifically touch on is color blindness. When an individual uses the words, I don't see color, or we're all the same, it ignores the racial dues paid by people of color. Race and color are very real and carry very strong lived experiences for a lot of folks. A cultural identity is often tied to one's race and color. It's important to see color as to not invalidate the very thing that make me who I am. Though we all want to be treated equal, seeing my racial identity allows me to be validated as different. and support it through that cultural difference. In our country, being white is essentially the default, and not seeing color allows folks to ignore past and present trauma, violence, or discrimination faced by people of color. I understand that when most folks say these things, the goal is not to create harm. They're not trying to be harmful when they say that. But as we have discussed, it's less about the intent that you have, but the impact. So it's important to use the terms that recognize the differences in people and validate their racial identity. So what can you do? You must understand that microaggressions are indeed a real hurtful thing, and you must be very intentional in your interactions with individuals from different cultures to ensure the things you are saying don't cause harm regardless of your intent. You must also be empathetic to the things folks from other cultures have gone through in their lives, good or bad, that validate their very feelings on what is being said to them. Their feelings are valid. Start from a lens that everyone's feelings are valid, and that will allow you to understand that they are allowed to feel a certain way based upon your words or those of others. If you hurt someone, it's simple as saying, I'm sorry. When someone has brought to your attention a microaggression you just communicated, say, I'm sorry. Don't over apologize or continue to repeatedly say, I'm sorry, though. Hearing one genuine, simple apology is all the other person needs in the moment. And lastly, try to become an ally. If you hear a microaggression, don't be afraid to call that person out. It will help them and the folks that they will be interacting with in the long run. Everything we hope to do as pro bono advisors is rooted in wanting to serve, at least we hope so, wanting to serve at the end of the day and to help our clients. Helping people through our work is a great thing, right? Most of the time it is, but I want us to look at how it can be detrimental. I don't want to lose you all on this one. This is a tough topic. I don't want to lose you all, but I want us to address the elephant in the room in pro bono work. And we have touched upon this point at the start of the presentation. It's that the majority of folks on this call and those in the financial services sector are white and maybe from a different race, ethnicity, gender, socioeconomic status, or other, then you will end up serving through your pro bono work. Although we all mean well and hopefully are coming into this work with an altruistic mindset, we must be careful not to fall into the trope of the white savior to those we are serving. We should always ask ourselves, is what I am doing helping to make me feel good about myself more than actual combating the systemic problems that are affecting people of color and folks who don't look like me? This is a hard topic to work through for some, and I totally understand that, but it is vital that we understand its definition so you're able to come into a relationship with your pro bono client or participant in the most open and honest manner. White savior complex is a term that's used to describe white people who consider themselves amazing helpers to people of color, but they help for the wrong reasons, and sometimes can end up doing more hurt than harm. Keep in mind, this does not refer to all white people. All people, it does not. White savior complex, sometimes called white savior syndrome or white saviorism, refers to those who work from assumption that they know what's best for people of color. They believe it's their responsibility to support and uplift communities of color in their own country or elsewhere because people of color lack the resources, willpower, and intelligence to do it themselves. In short, folks that have white savior complex consider themselves superior, whether they realize it or not. They swoop in to make a difference without stopping to consider whether that difference might not, in fact, have a more negative effect than positive one. To help conceptualize this, think about the movie Avatar. Avatar 1 was amazing. Avatar 2 was just okay. Here you have an entire race of indigenous people, the Na'vi, that were seen as not being able to save themselves without the help of the lead character, Jake Sully. We've also seen this portrayal in pop culture history in movies such as Cool Runnings, Dangerous Minds, The Last Samurai, etc. The idea of the white savior complex can show up in pro bono advising in many ways that I want you all just to be aware of. The examples include thinking that individual people of color can overcome their circumstances, but usually only with the help of white people. It's wrong to assume that you are the prime difference maker in their life. Think of yourselves as a tool they are using to better themselves. Again, we should never come into this thinking that we are the difference maker for them. We are a tool that they are going to use to better themselves as people. The idea that all people of color are coming from the same starting point or lack of education or family structure. Do not view ethnic groups as a monolith. They are not. Everyone has their own unique experiences, again, below that iceberg, their own thoughts, ideas, and families. All folks of one group are not at the same place. There are also assumptions around socioeconomic status. You should never assume how a person will behave or how the conversation will go, or that they need us specifically because where they're from, where they work, or how much money they make. Also, that the people you are dealing with are deserving or the exception to their cultural race. Can be particularly damaging. This goes back to the stereotype discussion earlier, assuming certain characteristics about a race or culture, and here assuming that the good ones are the exception. And lastly, not wanting to understand their backgrounds and cultures in depth, cultural competency. As we discussed earlier, you must try to put yourself in a position to become culturally competent and understand and learn from other cultures in order to be successful. These are all things you must be conscious of as to not get caught in this complex. So, as we begin to wrap up, what are some of the things you can do not to fall into this experience or just to avoid many of the things we've considered today? First, educate yourself and seek training. Bingo, knock that off the list. You guys are all doing that today, just like you're doing here. Continue to seek education and training for these topics. Try to better understand the backgrounds and communities of those you will be serving. Become as culturally competent as you can. I want you to examine your motivations for volunteering. Ask yourself, why is pro bono volunteering important for me, and what do I want to get out of it? Understand, you do not have all the answers. Understand, you are not the bearer of knowledge and understanding for the clients or participants you will serve. You are there to help and serve. Become an ally. Call things out. If you feel yourself or someone else doing something wrong, just call it out. People won't change, and we will not change unless we are aware that change is needed. And lastly, just listen. All sometimes folks need is an ear. Be empathetic and understanding and be a helpful ear to your clients. So as we get ready to close, I want everybody to take a deep breath. Airplane's an amazing movie, and he was sweating bullets. And this can cause a lot of thoughts and a lot of concerns. And I just want everybody to take a deep breath off of this. I think that it was a lot. It's definitely going to be a lot on this journey. You probably heard the old adage, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Treat your journey into DEI as that as well. The concepts and discussions and the looking internal can be heavy, and it can be a lot. You just have to work to not let it overwhelm you. Focus on the low-hanging fruit that we have and begin there. No matter what you have to be intentional for this work to succeed. I said that word 26 times today. Be intentional. You have to have an overt willingness to change and to understand that you are doing this for the best interests of those we serve. Lastly, you will have to have a process of continual reflection to learn what you did well and what isn't working well in your journey. What are your blind spots? And in what areas are you able to successfully make the transition? Again, I'm going to say it for the 27th time. Be intentional and just start. Just start now.
If you are a CFP or an AFC seeking continuing education units, or a candidate working on experiential hours, you can be awarded 1 CEU or hour for completing this module. Simply access the survey via the QR code or website and complete the requested information as it pertains to your situation. Once you've completed the survey, it will email you a certificate of completion as proof of attendance to the email you listed. If you don't need CEUs, but want a certificate of completion for personal or professional use, you are encouraged to complete the survey as well. If there's anything else we can provide you for this module or any other module, please let us know. For CFPs, we will report the hours to the CFP board. For AFCs, you will need to record the CEU with the AFCPE using the above code. We value your volunteer service, so thank you again for joining us in this brave space for this conversation.
This is my information. I'm happy to have any conversations with anyone about this topic. So again, I want to thank you all for coming today.